What's up, guys, and welcome to the channel. Today we have the Ariel Rider Grizzlies back out. I got some questions when I posted the last videos about these, and some of you guys wanted to know how to actually adjust the suspension on this bike. So we're going to do a quick video, just going to go over how to adjust the suspension. I'm going to give you guys some tips and tricks and some stuff that we've already run into kind of problem-wise. And yeah, so pretty easy video, so let's hop right into it and get this started. Okay, so first things first, the suspension on the front and the rear of these is fully adjustable. So you can adjust the spring rate on this by moving this spring up and down. And then you can also put air in this shock. And I'm gonna go over that in just a second too, because this actually matters and there is a specific PSI that you should be running on these. So yeah, so first things first, normally when you get your Ariel Rider Grizzly, it's going to be all the way up. So your spring will be wound way up here like this, all the way at the top, and basically that's giving the spring a lot more travel, and so when you sit on this, it's going to be able to compress a lot more. Now, if you move these down, you can see that what you're doing is compressing this spring already, so basically putting some preload in it, so when you go to sit on it, it won't be as spongy. So that's kind of what I have done. There is a ton of adjustment here. You can move this quite a long ways. Also, there are some tools to make this easier. You can do it by hand. I've done this so many times that it's nice and smooth, but initially you'll probably need some tools. And I'll actually leave a link to those tools down in the description. You guys can order them right from Amazon. Now, I will say that we're still going to replace these shocks because even with the preload that I put in here, I'm still not 100% happy with them. I'd like something just a little better. So we are gonna be replacing these shocks at some point in the near future. But for now, if you guys want a little bit of a better ride or just want to adjust your ride a little bit, you can definitely do it with these shocks. So essentially what you're gonna do is you're gonna wind the spring down. You wanna keep the top nut up at the top. Just keep it out of the way, because if you get them locked together, obviously you won't be able to turn this. So you're turning just the bottom ring, and this is gonna be a little bit of trial and error. So you're gonna have to adjust this, hop on it, go ride it, see how you feel about it, and then return and adjust it some more if it's not to your liking yet. And obviously the tighter you go with this, it's gonna be harder and harder and harder. So a spanner wrench on this is going to be the tool to use. I've just been doing this so long that I can do it by hand. So the other thing that you want to make sure that you do is measure this gap. So it wants to be even on both sides, otherwise the ride's going to be weird. So you just take a tape measure and measure the gap you have from here to here, or just the gap you have in here. It doesn't really matter as long as the gap is the same. That's going to tell you that your springs are the same, and that's all that really matters. A little further. Okay. And you can see there's a ton of adjustment here. So we went from this being all the way up at the top to now I have, you know, over a finger space in there. So that's a heck of a lot of movement on that spring. When you have the spring in the spot that you want, you're gonna run the second nut down and just lock it to the first spring. And we'll do that with a spanner wrench. So like I said, I will leave the link to those tools down below. So that's essentially the adjustment. Now, obviously you're gonna wanna do this on the other side and you want it to be the same. So you can measure this gap from here to here. Just measure this gap here, and that will assure that your suspension's the same on both sides. So now let's talk about the air. So you have this nipple here and it is for air. So you can preload the suspension with air. It is liquid filled in there also, so it does have some type of mineral oil, but the air basically stiffens that shock up. So the way Ariel Rider wants you to do it is, depending on your rider weight, that will depend on how much air you put in there. These shocks are rated at 300 PSI of air. So Ariel Rider says that if you're a 200-pound rider, then you would put around 100 PSI of air. Now that's not a perfect equation. Every rider is going to be a little bit different. So depending on if you want it a little softer or a little harder, that would depend on how much air you're going to put in. Now, one thing to note on both of our bikes, and we've seen this actually on a lot of bikes, these actually leak. So when you put air in them, you should get some soapy water, spray it around the valve, and just make sure that you don't have a leak, because our valves were actually loose when we initially got them. So just tighten the valves up, and that seemed to have fixed the air leak problem. So I run the shocks right around 160 PSI, and that seems to kind of work for me. But like I said, everybody will be different. These front shocks are gonna be fairly easy. There's just these turn knobs at the top here. And you're gonna turn them towards the H for stiff and towards the S for soft. So you have hard and soft. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So the back's where you're actually gonna find most of your suspension adjustment, and that's where I spent the most time on this bike, is just making sure that I had the back set up right. So hopefully I answered any questions you guys have. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, whatever, definitely let me know down in the comments. I do appreciate you guys checking out our videos. Obviously you guys can see this bike still has a stock seat, unlike the bike behind me. JB Seats is currently working on our next seat. It's gonna be a lot more custom than our first seat, and it is gonna be a 4-inch seat. So a lot of you guys have asked me about that 4-inch seat compared to a 3-inch seat. So we did go ahead and order a 4-inch seat. It's gonna be a lot more padded on the top, so it's gonna be super, super comfortable. Should be pretty interesting. I haven't seen one of these bikes with a 4-inch seat, so I don't even know what it's gonna look like, but I'm pretty excited to put it on, and it's gonna be super awesome. So as soon as that gets in, we'll do that video also. So thanks for hitting that like button for us, and thanks for commenting down below. It really helps us defeat that YouTube algorithm. And as always, please consider subscribing, because that helps us grow. It helps us do more cool stuff like this. So we do really, really appreciate it, guys. And thanks for being with us, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Okay. On the scene, back out fresh 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 on the scene.